that we need to act on should be listed. If it's not all,
Yeah, just
all the
make sure we
works,
didn't need to add this ones.
I don't think we have that.
We are back from executive session at 7:04 PM. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. I'd like to call to order the regular Board of Selectmen's meeting for Monday, May 1st. It is
Candace.
7:04 PM.
Candace Bouchard.
Jonathan Moorhart.
Candy Perez.
Josh Kelly.
Tyler Shalashi.
Glenn Albanesius.
Stephen Sadlack.
Linda Grappo.
Jack Bork. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Review of the agenda. Is there anything to add or subtract?
Mr. Mayor, just a question. I'm wondering under new business, it was not included, but it was part of our package of information, a letter from a resident of 127 Holabird Avenue. Should we be discussing that, at least considering possible action on it, add it to agenda, or is there a delay in that?
I would recommend discussing it under correspondence.
What if we want to take action on it? So if we wanted to take action on it, I'd consider it under new business, item number 10I, consider and possibly act on the request of a landowner on 127 Holabird Avenue, based upon the letter that we have received from that person.
Is there a second?
Fair enough.
Mr. Mayor, I would only ask that item 9B, discussion on 840 East Wakefield Boulevard, request for a permanent easement, be amended to include and possible referral to a special town meeting. I'm sorry, I don't have an extra copy. It is available online, or if you would like a printed copy, I can print one now.
I'll go through it. Josh, I'll do it. I printed something.
Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
See if Glenn has something here. I'll go make copies. Thank you.
Anything else? Moving on to our approval of meetings for the special meeting on April 14th.
So moved.
Second. Any corrections, additions? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous? A regular meeting on April 17th.
I'll make that motion.
Any corrections or additions? Seeing none, all in favor? Moving on to item number 5, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes or less and may speak once. Please give your name and address. Who would like to speak?
Captain Stephen Kosinski, 105A Standard Avenue.
And
I don't want to be here any more than you want to see my face and hear this over and over again. Okay? We are dealing with a crime that was committed in 2013, all right? So let's get to the point. It says, I did a lot of research. This happens to be, as well known in all 6 New England states, a town meeting. And any citizen, and I did a lot of research, is allowable to bring a motion up, and that's what it's gonna wanna do. This way, most of you will have the right and at least the honorable dignity to get it right. And that is to get this whole situation behind us. And the motion is, everything goes back to that point in time, prior to the crime committed when that 2013 Board of Selectmen, dominated by the Democrats, took away the public comment, which was illegal to do so because it's in our town charter. It is also part of the freedom of speech. And we have many, many, many individuals living and have sacrificed to preserve that Constitution. Now, I don't know about you, but I take it, and I put my hand up 4 times, took an oath, and I started with this country and signed a contract with this country. And I'll be damned if I'm gonna let anyone step on that Constitution. And I'll read just a quick quote from that. We, the people, are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow those that would pervert the Constitution. I know, I happen to be a very big history buff. You know who wrote that? Abraham Lincoln. Pretty smart guy. First president under the Republicans and whatnot. So the motion is we go back to that point in time, prior to that crime committed in 2013. So I put the motion out there. By the way, Glenn, this is citizens. You're a citizen of this town, so you have a right also to make a vote too. Do we have anybody that wants to second that motion? Nobody's gonna second the motion to go back to where it was originally? You're kidding me. Anybody here in this, you wanna go back, you want freedom of speech? And nobody here's gonna second my motion? Oh my God.
I'll second that motion.
Who?
I did.
Thank you. Any discussions? Yes.
I'm talking, Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
Mr.
Candy.
Mayor, do you have the statute that allows this? Do you have the language that allows this? And then second, there are errors in the motion. The 2013 was a long year, and there were different parties at different points in time during 2013. The motion does not define a date. The motion does not say that there was public comment, and that the timing of public comment is probably what's at issue. So I think that before any action is taken, there needs to be some research on this.
The motion is tabled till our next meeting.
If it is a motion.
And you get to see my face again, and I get that glazed look over your faces again. All I want is to see is justice done, right? Not just for me and my fellow soldiers who are living, but those that are buried and sacrificed everything for that Constitution, right? Remember, the truth doesn't need to defend itself, but a lie will always challenge it, hop another lie on top of another lie on top of another lie, and try to convince you that that is the truth, right? I may just live out the rest of my existence as an honest sinner. Well, I'm not gonna go down as a lying, cheating, dishonorable hypocrite. Thank you.
My name's Donald Dennis Nalton. I live in 373 North Main Street. So my question is, we're trying to buy a piece of land that next to...
Could you repeat
Yeah,
it?
can you?
Oh, sorry, yes. My name is Dennis Nalitov.
Okay.
I live on 373 North Main Street. And we would like to buy a piece of land adjacent to our property, 16 Brook Street. We've been trying it from 2019, and we met with the previous town manager just before the COVID started, and he was agreed. I mean, he was in favor to sell it, but he said we need to discuss it with this board of selectmen. We wrote the letter, but because of the COVID and so there's nothing happened. The reason why we wanted to buy it, because we have a drive which is very steep, and besides, it's right next to that liquor store, and it's down the hill. The road goes down the hill, so people speeding a lot. There's a lot of accidents there. Just our driveway is right next to that little plaza on the left, so we need to slow down, and people speeding. There's a lot of accidents there, but if we could have that strip of land, we could enter our property from the Brook Street, which is much safer. And yeah, so my question is, what do I need to do to get on the agenda for Board of Selectmen to discuss it?
If I may, the question of the sale of town-owned property has been coming up recently. I don't know if you've seen, but the Board of Selectmen voted a couple meetings ago, and actually will be taking further action tonight on the sale of 17 Front Street. That was a test, that was something that they put forward to make sure that they had an understanding of how the system was going to work. It's been going very well, and 16 Brook Street is on a short list that I presented to the Board of Selectmen for consideration for sale. I can't guarantee anything, and neither can any member of this board, and it would be listed on the open market, but if it is put forward by the board at a later date, you would have the opportunity to put in an offer on that property. And I have put it forward to the selectmen, and you may see further discussion about it in the near future.
Okay, thank you.
Wayne Morgan, 79 Wetmore Avenue. I'm going to read, I have to read a little fast, but I timed myself, so I should be within the time. As a child, I found my connection to my community through my participation in local theater and music venues. As an adult, when I moved to Connecticut, I struggled to recreate that sense of community for myself until I reconnected with local theater in Bristol. I fell in love with Winstead and moved here 6 years ago. However, I kept my strong ties to Bristol's theater community. I've seen this with others that have moved from Bristol but still commute there to participate in music and theater projects. I would love for Winstead to have a diverse arts culture like this, and I feel like we are just on the cusp of forming it with the creation of the Laurel City Playhouse and Concert Hall. It's a grand vision and one that I believe we should all support. From what I understand, the 630 Main Street property has not been required to pay taxes in the past as it was tax exempt. Creating a playhouse in this property would add tax income to the town. In order to build a successful theater company from the ground up, some time and initial tax reductions with no strings attached are essential. Another large issue regards the current overvaluation of the property by the town. The investors are taking a huge personal financial risk on their part in order to start this venue, and requiring them to pay based on a potential increased tax burden of $26,000 versus a real tax burden of $8,000 per year is just unacceptable. I understand that this can be reassessed next February, but there is no guarantee that the assessed value will be reduced to the actual value of the property. A potential tax burden increase of $18,000 per year could potentially make the business numbers impossible. Forcing investors to pay $130,000 if the tax reassessment fails and the endeavor must close its doors sabotages the entire project. In my opinion, providing the tax reduction and removing the strings attached of the 5-year full burden tax responsibility is a win-win for the town. No taxes versus full fairly assessed taxes after an initial tax reduction period. Continuing on the topic of how the town would benefit by the Laurel City Playhouse purchasing 630 Main Street, bringing performers in to rehearse and perform at this new venue would bring in new customers at our town restaurants and shops as they need to eat and buy essential items while in town. Bringing in audience members from out of town will also bring more customers to dine in and stroll our Main Street shops before or after performances. Theaters also need to buy many materials and services to produce their events and maintain their facility. Materials to build sets, poster and playbill printing, costume materials, sound equipment, and materials for musical instruments, as well as electrician, plumbing, and carpentry labor, just to name a few. Towns that people want to drive to and visit usually have a thriving arts community. Visitors know they can come in and walk the shops, visit a gallery or museum, have a meal, and catch a show. Winstead offers most of what I mentioned, but it's missing this vital piece: a playhouse and music venue. By approving this tax reduction with no strings attached, you will be supporting our town and its arts community as a whole. Thank you.
Come on up.
My name is Willard Minton. I live in Barkhamsted, but I have a long experience with activity in the arts here in Winstead. I taught music at the Gilbert School for 31 years. I was the choir director at the Second Congregational Church for 34 years. I taught music, literature, and history classes at the Community College for 18 years. And I've directed musicals at the Warner Theater in Torrington and the Simsbury Community Theater Group in Simsbury. This is something of very great importance to me, that we recognize the arts, and we have a very interesting proposal here before us, before you. John Noon and his wife are trying to make the arts a vibrant part of Winstead. One only needs to travel 10 or 11 miles south of here to Torrington to see what the arts have done to that city. When I first came to this area, Torrington was a tired factory town. And look at that city now. The Main Street is alive all the time. Not only the Warner Theater, but the arts centers, the different museums that have sprung up all up and down their Main Street. The number of new restaurants and attractive activities that Center of Arts has drawn to the city of Torrington, I think can happen here in Winstead as well. But my understanding, and I'm not privy to all of the behind-the-scenes work, my understanding is that a proposal has been made by the Noons to purchase the former Methodist Church on Main Street. There is an issue about the taxing. That's an issue that needs to be resolved, and I would urge that every possible consideration be given to the Noons in their efforts to make this vision of theirs a reality by making their tax burden not so onerous as it seems to be the one time it was explained to me. And I think this could be done by the Board of Selectmen by not only making a visible but a very vocal decision to give them an opportunity to do this without a major tax burden to start. I urge every possible level of support for Mr. Noon and his ambitions and his wonderful ideas to expand the arts here in Winstead. Thank you very much for listening.
Anyone else? Come on up.
Deb Kessler, 272 Gilbert Avenue. For anyone who knows me, you'll know that historic preservation is, vitally important to me. And the building in question on Main Street is a beautiful, magnificent spot on our very prominent Main Street. It was built in 1904. The stone, the design of the building is beautiful. The windows were put in by, I believe his name was Benjamin Sellers, who worked under Louis Comfort Tiffany. So it doesn't get any more special than that. And the building speaks to the history that we have in our community, that what our town was like, how thriving it was at that point in time. So it has a lot of significance to it. So as I've got to know people in town, you start talking about history, somebody will say, oh, did you ever see pictures of Shadow Lawn? What happened to it? Well, we didn't preserve it, we let it go. And what happened to the train depot? We let it go. And I think the concern, one of the concerns in this conversation is if John and Alla are not able to purchase the building and fulfill the dream that they have of it, we don't know who's going to be the next buyer in line. If it's a church, well, we go back to a no tax status. If it's someone who's looking to gut the building for its architectural details, we now have essentially done what people did, 70 years ago with Shadow Lawn. It's gone. So you can't turn that back. You can't let that, you can't go back and rebuild what we've lost, basically. So again, in the number of years that we've lived here, we've seen the town grow in terms of creativity. We've got Whiting Mills that's thriving. We have the American Mural Project. We have, the Second Home Lounge and the jazz at the Gilson. We have all sorts of positives going on. I really urge you to think long-term. Think about, yes, we're hoping that you will grant them a 5-year tax abatement so that they can do what they need to do to make this a viable performing arts center. But think in the long term, the 5 years, 10 years from now, we could have plays and musical programs and all sorts of things happening in this community because we had the time, or we took the time to look towards the future. So, thank you.
Come on up.
That's Lynn Kessler, 272 Gilbert Avenue, and like last time, I've been asked to read another letter from someone who could not be here. It's very short, so I won't take up much time at this. This is from Stuart Jones on 199 East Lake Street in Winstead. As a longtime Winstead resident, small business owner, and a taxpayer with 3 properties, I am writing in support of the Laurel City Playhouse and Concert Hall. The Methodist Church should be preserved and become a taxpayer. Most towns, and possibly Winstead, allow a phased-in tax schedule with an appraisal based on its sale value. Even beyond the creation of a cultural venue, the Laurel City Playhouse and Concert Hall would invest money into building and provide a path to equitable taxation. They need a sale value assessment and a tax phase-in, both of which would have improved life in Winstead and the Grand List. Sincerely yours, Stuart Jones.
Anyone else? Come on up, sir.
Good evening. My name is Steve Larson. I live at 77 Wheeler Street in Winstead. Last week's meeting was actually the first town council meeting that I attended. It was fascinating for me, and it was an honor to be here. It was a bit of an emotional journey. When the first proposal, after we'd all spoken, and the first tax abatement proposal for the proposed arts center was announced, I think you probably felt it, all of us in the room, our hearts sank, because all of us in the arts know how hard it is to get an artistic venture off the ground, especially if you're dealing with, having to deal with maintaining a building. John and Alla are talking about taking an enormous personal financial risk. They asked me a few nights ago what for our opinions, what we thought, and I just, my comment was, I don't have that kind of stomach for risk. So they are being incredibly brave. It will be of enormous benefit to this city in the long run. And I really appreciate that the council was willing to sit back down with them and discuss. I apologize that I was late. I had another commitment. So I don't know exactly what the latest proposal is. I do hope it gave them some financial certainty. It was very worrisome that they were being asked to take on faith that that the property valuation would be reduced next February after reevaluation. That to me just seemed like so much uncertainty that it made their position completely unviable if they wanted to actually be able to get this business off the ground. So I do hope that you've been able to give them better financial certainty for these first 5 years and a much better overall financial deal, because getting this thing off the ground is a big risk for them. It's going to be of enormous benefit for the town, and I think it is, that we have to consider that we are not, as a town, getting any revenue from this building at all right now. We never have. We're not giving the money that the town currently has. We're just not going to be demanding as much taxation revenue as one would hope. But we have to be realistic. This could lead to enormous benefit for the greater community and the greater even businesses and everything, and could eventually lead to them paying a substantial property tax in the long run if they have the financial opportunity to really build what they need to build. So I really appreciate that you're willing to hear these discussions and give them the proper consideration. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none, moving on.
Motion.
Yeah, can I have a motion to add the driveway variance at 543 East Wakefield Boulevard to item 9C on the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Candy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. All in favor? Unanimous. Moving on to item 6, Town Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, we have a lot of different development projects that are in the works. We have updates on Bachelor School. We have updates coming on a few other projects down the road, including the sale of 17 Front Street for the public tonight, but we'll discuss that more when we get there. The budget will be discussed and voted on at annual town meeting 1 week from today, 1 week from right now, Monday, May 8th, 2023 at 7:00 p.m. at the Gilbert School. Anybody who is a property owner in town is invited to come and participate in that, so long as you have more than a certain assessed value of property, or if you're a registered voter. Beyond that, we have a little bit of headway on grants. Last time I told you that we had a $60,000 grant that was issued to us by the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection for the continued planning and development at the Mad River Recreation Area. Since our last meeting, the town submitted a formal application, which was quite a haul and quite a process, to the Department of Justice's COPS grant program. Money for this program has already been earmarked to the town for the purchase of Public Works and Police Department radios, 800-band tri-band radios, and that money is secured for us, but we were required to submit this to make sure that the Department of Justice had an understanding of each individual item that would be purchased. We expect that to be approved in relatively short order, and we are ready to go with contractors or with our contracted service to acquire those radios once the money comes in. Beyond that, we are expecting to post in the next week or so for 2 police department vacancies. If anybody knows somebody interested in becoming a police officer in another town that would be a great fit for our team here, please encourage them to apply. We have continued vacancies at our Department of Public Works as well, some of which will be posted in the near future. And our dates are being discussed right now for preliminary discussions around the police union negotiations. The police chief and I had some great conversations this past week on Friday about that. So going forward, some dates to be looking out for. Again, that annual town meeting on May 8th. At that annual town meeting, a date for the annual referendum will be formally set. Though traditionally it's been on the last Saturday in May. Any questions that I can answer for members of the Board of Selectmen?
Would there be an announcement on the town's website for the May 8th vote and also on the Facebook page?
Absolutely. It's already been posted. It is listed on the website.
I know it's listed.
We will do another blast to make sure that people are presently aware. And it was also posted in the newspaper.
Right.
Yep.
No other questions? Moving on to item 7, correspondence. Anyone have anything?
If I may, we do have a letter that was submitted to us by Mary H. Conklin of 127 Holabird Ave. And my apologies, I'm not sure if anybody spoke to this while I had stepped out of the room for a moment. Okay. So a letter has been submitted to us regarding, and I've been involved with this to an extent, as says the Director of Public Works, who's here with us tonight. A letter was submitted to us regarding issues related to trees on private and public property. There has been a lot of discussion between myself, the Director of Public Works, our town attorney, over what trees are we financially and legally responsible to remove, as opposed to what is the responsibility of private homeowners. I'm happy to read the full letter into the record if you'd so like. It is also on file in my office, and I believe in the town clerk's office, or we can get you a copy if anybody's interested in seeing a hard copy and reading through it. But the crux of the matter is there are some disagreements around town, and in particular with Ms. Conklin over on Holabird Ave, related to where trees fall between the town's either right-of-way or property and the private properties, and whose responsibility it is to have them removed when they become either damaged or, due to old age, are at risk of falling. So in the case related to Ms. Conklin's request here, we have reviewed these trees ad nauseum. I'd certainly invite Jim to say a few words if you're interested. We've reviewed these trees ad nauseum. It's our understanding that they are on private property. We have had that conversation with Ms. Conklin. We will continue to have those conversations. The Director of Public Works also serves as the tree warden and is responsible for the removal of town-responsible trees. There's a history to this, and there's a history of perhaps promises being made, no record in writing of any such agreement being made between the town and a private resident over a tree removal that we can find or that we can note. As this situation progresses, I'm happy to keep the board apprised of the different decisions that are made by the Director of Public Works and I. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or ask Jim to answer them.
Well, I think that the point of process is that this is correspondence.
Yep.
It's not an agenda item.
Understood.
So I don't think, having a discussion about it should be here. It should be an agenda item if we're gonna do that. And then the other thing I would just ask is that perhaps our town attorney specifically can give us a direction on this.
And with our discussion with the town attorney, just for the record, he supported our position, which is presently to.
We'll give it to the board in writing,
Okay, we can do that.
if everybody else is okay.
Any other correspondence?
The only reason I brought it up originally seemed to be, by her letter, a question of prior commitment, and maybe by that prior commitment, and whether you've not found any official documents of that prior commitment.
We have no official or unofficial document, record, handwritten scratch note.
But we do know that the trees were cut down by the town originally, the older trees,
But
a long time ago.
But Jack, I think we're going into the whole conversation about it. It's not an agenda item.
I know.
So
Well,
I think it should go back to them with an opinion, then come back to us as an agenda item.
yeah, that was my purpose of having at least a discussion.
Other correspondence? Seeing none, moving on to boards and commissions. Steve?
Thank you, Todd. Tonight, we're going to take action on the following. I move that we appoint Paul Mitchell as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals as an alternate replacing Sandy Griswold, his term to expire in December of 2026.
Second?
Thank you, Candy. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Unanimous?
And we're doing some reappointments. I move that we reappoint Thomas Sullivan as a member of the Soldiers Monument Commission, term to expire in June of 2027.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous?
I move we appoint Lynn Kessler as a member of the Soldiers Monument Commission, term to expire in June of 2027.
Second.
Thanks, Steve. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous?
And we should acknowledge the resignations, information in your packets of 3 members of boards and commissions. Mary Ann Marino, who's been a member of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission. Alan Miller, who's been a member of the Recreation Board. And Doug Werner, who's been a member of the Soldiers Monument Commission. Acknowledge their resignations with our thanks for their service.
So noted.
Can I just take a moment to acknowledge Doug? Doug has been on the Soldiers Monument Commission for about 20 years, 20-plus years, and has given a lot of service, continued service to the commission in taking care of the grounds and activities. His membership will be missed, but as I said, a long-term member of the commission.
That's it for now, Todd.
Thanks, sir. Moving on to unfinished business. Item A, 23-11D, consider and possibly act on tax abatement items. Josh?
So, a couple of selectmen and I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Noon and Ala, his partner, to discuss the proposed tax abatement. I think it was made pretty clear at the prior meeting that there was some disagreement about the terms of the tax abatement, the duration of it, the amount, et cetera. And the purpose of this meeting was to come to some level of consensus around what could be offered that would be acceptable to the Board of Selectmen and agreeable to the individual set to receive the tax abatement. So you have 2 documents in front of you tonight. First, for members of the Board of Selectmen, you have the item that was in your packet. Second, you have a double-sided single sheet that I passed out to you at the beginning of the meeting, actually it was before the last meeting. It has a yellow highlight on the front, in case you're looking for it. So, a discussion was had. There is some adjusted language that was included in a new resolution, which has been reviewed and approved by our town attorney, so that it's ready to approve no matter how you wish to perhaps amend it. And you can see that there are 5 clauses here. The clauses set a tax abatement level for each year. The schedule that's been created under Schedule A, which is on the back of the page, effective July 1st, 2023, it's a 100% abatement. Effective July 1st, 2024, it's an 80% abatement, and it drops down by 20% each year until finally on July 1st, 2028, it becomes a fully taxable property with no tax abatement. The agreement is completed. That's what's articulated in item A. From there are a number of other clauses that help to articulate the terms of the agreement. Item E is one that was of some contention even as we left it on Friday. Item E reads, the controlling organization, being the LLC that John Noon is to establish, shall be required to pay back any abated taxes if 630 Main Street is sold or otherwise transferred to an outside agency or individual within 5 years of the start of this agreement. As I think you've heard from some of the individuals who spoke during public comment, there's an opinion held by the individuals who seek to buy 630 Main Street that this is limiting, that this could put them at severe financial risk in the event that something goes awry or amiss. Of course, the reason that this final clause was included in the proposal that was shown to John and Ala and that is being brought before you today is to protect the town's investment. The purpose of our tax abatement is to be rolled out in such a manner as to allow for the creation of a performing arts center, and in the event that that is not able to happen and is not sustainable, the idea is that we would recoup the investment that we're putting into it through this tax abatement. So if you believe that the language that's being presented to you is acceptable and should go forward, that language is there for your approval. If you are in agreement with the applicant, for lack of a better way to phrase it, but in agreement with John Noon, that the removal of this clause would be of help to them, it's within the board's power to remove that clause.
I think it's important that you read all the sections on there.
Sure. I'll read the whole resolution as it stands. Whereas Section 12-65B, as amended, of the Connecticut General Statutes permits municipalities to fix the assessed value of properties to provide tax abatement for new recreational facilities to be opened. And whereas the Board of Selectmen has duly considered this matter and finds reason to believe that the town's tax base will benefit in the long term from approving this abatement, and that the prospective owner of the business has assured the town that the property will remain taxable so long as the property remains in his possession. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Board of Selectmen, fix the assessed value of the property located at 630 Main Street in accordance with Schedule A attached, and B, that the assessed value of the property shall be redetermined under routine procedures by the assessor's office following the completion of the fixed assessed value schedule, and C, that this agreement fixing the assessed value shall be terminated if a limited liability corporation, an LLC, established and operated by John Noon transfers ownership of the property, or if the property is no longer a recreational facility, and thereafter such property shall be assessed at its fair market value as determined by the assessor under the provisions of Connecticut General Statute 12-64. D, this agreement will begin upon an LLC established and operated by John Noon taking title to 630 Main Street, Winchester, Connecticut, and shall be deemed personal to that LLC and shall not run with the land. And E, the controlling organization shall be required to pay back any abated taxes if 630 Main Street is sold or otherwise transferred to an outside agency or individual within 5 years of the start of the agreement. And on the back, Schedule A reads, as I said, effective July 1st, 2023, a 100% abatement. In 2024, an 80% abatement. Beginning July 1st, 2025, a 60%. 2026, a 40%. 2027, a 20%. And July 1st, 2028, a 0%. And the abatement percentage shall be applied to the property's assessed value as it is established by the town and the Board of Assessment Appeals in each given fiscal year. Over the course of the 6 years, the effective tax rate on average is 50%.
Can you give an example of the expected assessed value? Not in the first year, but in the second year after the Board of Assessment Appeals meets in February of 2024, based on the sales price?
Yes, based on the sales price, we ran some numbers, and the assessed value could be adjusted so much that while at the last meeting we were discussing $23,000 to $26,000 of annual tax revenue, it may be adjusted down so far as to only collect around $7,000 of annual tax revenue, based on if the appraised value by the town is set at the same level at a Board of Assessment Appeals hearing as the sale price. I believe it's $7,700 is what would be collected in taxes. That's a significant change.
So the first year would be?
The first year is a 100% abatement, so there would be no payment. Within the first year, it would be 80% of $7,000, which I can do the math out quickly for you if you'd like, and then 60% of that $7,000 and change, 40% of the $7,000, 20%, and so forth.
So in the second year, it's about $1,500?
Yes.
Any other discussion?
Yes, I think we should, and I would move that we amend the resolution to delete item B.
Is there a second for Steve's motion?
I'll second it for discussion.
Yeah, I was one of the two selectmen that met with Josh and with John and Alla a week or so ago. We spent about an hour and a half talking about the vision, and we spent a lot of that time talking about the numbers, the math. I think John, you've presented a case. You've presented a vision, and you've presented community support. And so, as a Board of Selectmen, we should be supportive of efforts to bring the arts and economic advancement to the town. I'm just composing my thoughts, Josh. Todd.
I think we have some agreement on the numbers for each of the 5 years, 0 in the first year, et cetera. To present, to support an initiative like this from an entrepreneur is something we should be doing. Should we be doing it with tax dollars or not? That's the other issue. We've got to look out as selectmen for the interest of the town. I would support deleting item E, and I would support a final motion to approve the tax abatement plan moving forward. One of the things I learned last Thursday at the meeting was that there are always new costs coming in when you propose a project like this. And just recently, John, you found that sprinklers are going to be needed, and oh my gosh, sprinklers, that's a few dollars. And there's other things as you begin a project like this that can't be anticipated, which are gonna put a financial strain on you. And you're taking a big risk, and I appreciate that on behalf of the community. And I think we should take some risk as selectmen and approve the resolution as amended.
Other discussion?
Steve, is the 5 years the issue? If it was 10 years, would we be having any question about this? If the abatement itself? If the same language, instead of saying transfers to another outside agency or an individual within 10 years of the start of this agreement, would you have any issue with that? I'm just
I don't have any.
extending the amount of time.
Yeah.
Because I know we have some question regarding, we want to be sure things get done. And there was some earlier discussion about, is 5 years too short, too long? Where do we get the 5 years from? Should it be 10 years instead? I'm just asking you how you feel about that. I don't think it needs to be extended to 10 years. I think 5 is appropriate. Well, you're eliminating it. You've called for the elimination of this whole clause.
Well, so just to clarify, there are two different parts of this resolution that involve 5 years. The first is under subsection A, which references Schedule A on the back of the paper, that goes through and provides an abatement over the course of 5 years. The second reference is in subsection E, which discusses the fact that if left in and the controlling organization sold the property within a 5-year window, they would be required to pay back all of the abated taxes to us. So by removing subsection E, we're not in any way amending the length of the agreement. We're just reducing the requirement, we're eliminating the requirement for John to pay the town back for lost revenue.
I understand that. That's my intent. Right, I understand that, and I'm just saying, would it be more acceptable, because I'm not sure how this vote would go anyway, but if instead of deleting that, we just added it to make 10 years.
There's no difference at 10 years. There's no difference from 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because it's 100%. So we're only talking about a 5-year time frame.
Can I?
Not fair.
Yeah, it just, this is one of those situations where it's a difficult decision to make, because we all want to protect the architecture of the church. I don't think there's anybody here that does not want to protect the architecture of the church, which is one of my main objectives, is to protect the architecture of the church. And that may take some swallowing of certain things that we may not, or everybody here would maybe not agree to or agree on, or out in the general public in terms of funding and money. I didn't think the 5-year payback is an issue, because if it's going to do, and if everybody that's spoken has talked about what it's going to be and how successful it's going to be and the impact that it's going to be, it will be here in 5 years, right? It's gonna be here in 5 years. So I was the other one that was asked to meet with John and Alla. And one of the reasons that the 5-year payback exists in my mind is to protect the town. And we have numerous evidence pieces throughout town of how we've had deals with people, and then they kind of they don't get developed as quickly as we'd like. So in my thinking, and then I mean, it came from, proposals that are currently out there circulating in the state of Connecticut, that these repayment periods are there to protect the town. And I used an example, and, and I apologize ahead of time, but if something happened to John or Alla, and they had to sell this building in year 2, and whether it went to, they couldn't do it anymore because one of them got so sick, or, I mean, it doesn't go down a nice path, and we said this in the meeting, is that, if one of them were to die, or something were to happen, because the entity is in their name. It's not, the entity isn't in, like, the Winchester Historical Society, is that in the Historical Society that would be ongoing. It's not in the name of, I don't know, the Soldiers Monument that keeps on going, or any other private entity, LLC, that's out there, the Northwest Arts Council, that keeps on going no matter who's there. It's been chosen in this case to be presented as a private ownership. And so, to me, it's just protecting the town from what happens when it has to go out there, and it doesn't become what we say it was going to become. And for those of you that are here about the arts and the support, and again, this is a difficult decision, but John and Alla at 15 Case Avenue, for their project for the dance and for the art there, have received $20,000 in terms of money that has come from the town to support that business getting off the ground. So the board and the town manager and you as people out in the town through the ARPA program, which was designed by the federal government to help with COVID things, have supported arts and are continuing to try to support the arts. But at some point in time, we also know that we have to protect the town. So it is a difficult decision. So that's where, for me, is the five-year issue. I mean, if you want to make it 3 years, I think I could be amenable to a 3-year. But I think there needs to be some town protection in terms of making sure it becomes what it's going to become, because it's in private ownership. It's not in anybody's, it's in a private LLC, not in somebody's, some group's name. So that's kind of like where I'm thinking on it. We reduced, when you look at, when Josh first brought it to us, he brought it to us at the current assessed value, and the tax value is $800 and something thousand. Well, if it goes before the Board of Assessment Appeals and goes to the sale price, which the sale price is market value. Market value is what kind of drives a reevaluation. And if you look at what the market value is at $410, which it was purchased or would be purchased at, and you take 70% of that, you're only taxing it on, $280,000 going forward, and then you abate that 100%, then you abate that at 80%, and then you abate that at 60, 40, down to 0. So you look, there's been major adjustments since the last meeting. Now, some of you may not like that adjustment. Some of you may say, well, that you gave too much. Some of you may say, you're not giving enough. So are we in the middle ground? And are we there for the church? Are we there for both? I mean, I mean, that's what we all have to figure out up here. And that's what we're trying to do.
Other discussion? So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with Article E. So if it's sold in year 1, just the taxes that were abated on year 1 would have to be paid back, not the entire 5-year abatement, correct?
If you keep this language in, the way that it reads right now, if they sold it in year 1, they would have to pay back year 1 taxes. If they sold it in year 2, they would have to pay back year 2 and year 1 taxes, and so forth.
Just the abated amount in year 2.
Correct, the abated amount. So, which means they would make us whole for those tax years. And as a quick example, I did run the calculation. If the Board of Assessment Appeals were to change everything to 410 as the appraised value, which again are in the $270,000 range for the assessed value, They would pay nothing in year one. They would pay around $1,500 in year two, so about $3,000 in year three, $4,620 in year four, $6,100 in year five, up to the total $7,700, almost even. They would pay a total of $23,000 over the course of this 6-year period, and they would be abated by the exact same amount. A 50-50 over 6 years.
Other discussion? Seeing no more discussion, we have Steve's motion. You want to read the motion? Do you have the motion?
Well, unless it was written, it was just whatever.
His motion was to eliminate section E.
Yeah,
Okay.
to delete section E. I seconded that motion.
John, you wanted to say something before we take action?
Yes. Can I step to the microphone?
Yep.
Good evening, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak before you tonight, and I appreciate I'm humbled by the people who have come and spoken on our behalf tonight as well. I'd like to talk to this issue about the 5-year payback. Josh just described something that I wasn't aware of, and I'd like to try to clarify that. Josh, in this plan, does it state that if I were to sell in 2 years, I would pay you back the taxes I owed you for those 2 years, which essentially would be 20% of the assessed value in the second year and 0% for the first year?
To clarify, 2 quick things. First, the motion that's on the floor right now is to eliminate this that I'm about to read to you. But Clause E reads, the controlling organization shall be required to pay back any abated taxes if 630 Main Street is sold or otherwise transferred to an outside agency or individual within 5 years of the start of this agreement, which is something that we did discuss on Thursday.
Okay, I wasn't clear on that, but I just want to say that the issue of the 5-year payback of the abated taxes is a matter of trust. To vote for this, you have to trust in what I'm trying to do, and for me to accept what's been put before me, I have to trust in you as well, and your whole town agencies. I've had a few issues in the past which kind of didn't build a lot of trust in myself, but I put those things behind me. There's some articles that I brought with me today about how some tax assessors have treated nonprofit organizations throughout the state, and that doesn't help with my trust of some of the agencies that are out there, especially the tax assessor's office. But you're asking me to put all my trust into your tax assessment board, because the assessment currently is about 3 times the amount of what the value of the church probably should be, which is market value. So going forward, if the assessor's board chooses next February to reject my request for a lower assessment, then I'm stuck with basically a $26,000 a year bill for ongoing. So at that point, do I decide to sell it and just drop this whole project? But the numbers that Josh has put forward and Candy and Steve have helped to negotiate, we're willing to accept those numbers. They're not what we came here for originally, but they're the middle ground, as Candy calls it, for us. And we're willing to accept those numbers. What I don't like is the 5-year payback, because I need to trust you, and I'm hoping that you're going to trust me, that I'm going to invest my hard-earned money and my time into this project. Going back to 15 Case Avenue, Candy just said we received $20,000 towards that project. We've only received $10,000 towards that project. And we've invested at least $80,000 into the project at this point. So I think, and I can show you the receipts if you want to see
Well, no,
them.
my point was that we are supporting you, because other people didn't get anything.
Well, it kind of sounded like you were saying we gave you 20,000 and you haven't accomplished the goal yet, but.
No, it was for all the people that are up here saying that we have to support they want us to support the arts.
Okay.
So my point to that was we are supporting the arts. We have tried to support the arts.
Okay.
And according to our town manager, it's 20,000.
20,000's been awarded, only 10,000 has been issued as a check at this point in time.
Right, but you've been awarded 20, whether you have it all yet or not.
Right.
One's for the business and one's for facade improvement.
Okay, and at this point, I've spent probably about 80,000.
That's
on the
fine.
project.
This is all
So,
we're getting
so
at,
what I'm
returns.
trying to say is if you invested 20 into the 15 Case Avenue project, I've invested 80 or more into it as well. So I think that would be a sign that you can potentially trust me. And the other side of the coin is, you might speak with Josh, is there's a lot of other things in the arts and the performing arts world that I am trying to expand upon for the town, with regards to possibly making parks where there's art performances in the parks for the elderly community in the area of Case Avenue. We're trying to do things for children and everything here. So there's a lot more involved with what we're trying to do here than just buy a building. And with regards to the LLC, we're keeping it as an LLC so we can pay our taxes. If we were to go nonprofit with everything, which we very well can be, there'd be a possibility that we wouldn't pay any taxes with it. But we're trying to keep it as an LLC regarding the building and a nonprofit regarding the performers. So this way, we are paying our fair share of taxes. We are American citizens. We understand taxes are there for the betterment of society. We're willing to do that. But we want to get our feet off the ground. We want to be able to make a little bit of money so that we can pay our taxes, we can pay our bills, and we do not fail. That's the whole point of this, and that's the reason I'm asking for that 5-year payback to be removed. So should your tax assessor in 1 year tell me, I'm sorry, we're not going to reduce your assessment down to what is a logical assessment of the market value, then I have the option to pull out of this deal. That's why I'm asking for that.
John, for clarification, the tax abatement effective schedule that Josh has read, 100%, 80%, 60, 40, 20, your agreement with that?
That's acceptable to us, yes, Jack.
The only issue for you right now is this Section E.
Correct.
So if the improvements on the facility, the facility's going to be assessed every year?
Yes.
Yes, my apologies.
So,
If I add on a barn to my property, that
Okay.
increases the
so
value of my
it's going
property,
to
my
increase
assessment
the
changes.
value of the property, right?
Pardon?
Hopefully, it's going to increase the value of the property
Whatever renovations he
that
has to do
he's
if
made,
they're.
right? So it's going to increase, you would think, you would hope, because he's making,
I don't know enough about construction or, to say,
and John, you're saying that you, what did you say? That you would pull out if you couldn't make these demands?
Ma'am, the current market value for the building is $400,000. That's what we're paying, and that's what
Right.
others are willing to pay.
Right.
That typically would be the assessment value of the building, the appraisal value of the building. Assessment would be 70% of that. I am asking that the appraisal assessment be reduced to what the market value is currently. That can't be done because by law, it can only be done in February. So you were gracious enough to give me a zero tax abatement on the first year, which eliminates the requirement for me to pay a percentage of the inflated amount. Come next year in February, I'm going to apply for a reduction down to what is the market value of 400,000. At that point, I would pay 20% of the appraised amount of approximately 280 to 270,000, which comes out to, I think you said $1,500 with the mill rate. So every year, you're right, it will probably be reappraised every time we do some construction to a higher amount.
And the value will.
Right, but the numbers that we looked at were based on the market value appraisal and assessment of that building. And those are the numbers that we feel good about, that we can handle, okay? If it goes higher than that, if it goes to 3 times the amount like it is now, the inflated value, then it's probably not a number we can handle. So if your assessor next year, when I present to him or her or the committee that I want the assessment to be lowered or the appraisal to be lowered down to the market value or something thereof, and they refuse to do it, that's basically a statement on their part that we don't care what the market value is or what the potential or the appraisal value is, we're gonna charge you this amount, the three times the amount of that. And I don't wanna be subjected to that. I wanna have the ability to pull out of the deal should that happen.
Thank you.
There are properties on Main Street that have sold at a lower value than were previously assessed at, and their taxes are lower this year.
Well, we can certainly, once we purchase the building, we can certainly get an appraisal done
Right.
by a
But, I
professional
mean,
agency.
Somebody purchased a property that was valued at a higher amount when they purchased it, but they got it at a lower rate, not much, and their assessed value is lower. Now they're paying less taxes than they were the year before.
Oh, so you're saying that the assessment board recognized that?
No, just a general reval. So they had, there was a higher value for the property that was on the books, and someone bought it, and they bought it for lower than that was assessed at the value, and their assessment for taxes is lower, $3,000 less. Not as much as the building you're talking about. We're talking the 200,000 and 900 range, but it was 290, they bought it for like 280, 270, and their value is lower, and their tax, so it is following the market value of a price.
Okay, but currently, the appraisal is $1.2 million for that building. The assessment is almost $800,000 for that
But it
building?
hasn't sold yet. So this will be
Right,
the
but-
first time it's selling.
But from what I'm being told by the town assessor is that I can't have that change, that number cannot
Right.
change until next February.
Right. And this-
Regardless of when we buy it.
Right, and this happened afterwards. It just happened, you're just stuck in this time
I understand,
frame.
and
Right.
again, I say I'm very thankful and appreciative that a 0% was put on the very first year. So this first year is a moot point. The 26,000 inflated value is a moot point at this point, but next year it won't be a moot point because at that point I'll be responsible for that amount.
Yeah, so I find myself trying to, again, I'm here for the church and the structure and the historical nature of it, but I'm also still trying to protect the town. Because as many people have come and said what you said to us, we've been taught through history that most people will, but some things will happen. So what if we, and I don't even know how to do this language, that's why we'll have to use Josh and other people, that if you're worried about that first year and getting to Board of Assessment appeal, what if we say that and I know Steve has a motion on the floor for 5 years, or to take it out. What if we instead said in the first year, there is no clawback, but in years, if you own the building in year 2 through 5, there is a clawback? It gives you an opportunity to go before Board of Assessment Appeals, gives you an opportunity to pull out in the first year, but it gives the town assurances in years 2 through 5 that if you don't follow through with what you tell us you're gonna do with it, that we can claw back whatever that abatement is after that.
That's acceptable.
It puts us in a position where the town is protected after that. So, I mean, like I said, we have to find some way that this can become somehow acceptable for everyone.
That's acceptable.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that.
I agree.
I'm okay with that.
I would vote for that. So it would be within 4 years after the first year of purchase or something like that.
So first we'll vote on Steve's motion, and then
Okay.
we'll rebuild
You
it.
may not need mine. I don't know. May not need it.
Okay, so Steve's motion is to strike item E from the draft resolution. All in favor? One. Opposed? 6. Okay.
Candy, you gonna make a new motion?
Okay.
It's your wording.
Josh
It's
is-
my wording?
I think
Hold on
Josh is
one second.
writing it.
I'm trying to, I don't have, so before I make this motion and whatnot, if, because part of the reason for meeting with John and Al last week was to get to somewhere where if we vote on this, that it's gonna be acceptable to them.
Well, he just said
Yeah,
that would be acceptable.
but on the whole thing, so I just wanna make sure that if we do this, then we're not gonna be asked for any other changes on it.
Can I actually see the document and read
Oh,
through?
we'll
'Cause-
read it into the record, and you can see it too.
Okay.
I have notes all
Let
over
me see
mine,
if
so
you-
I don't know if anybody has a clean copy they could share with
What do
me.
you think of this?
Mine's pretty
You can get it
clear.
back.
I have notes on
I
mine.
mean, obviously, even if we approve this, you don't have to sign it tomorrow. You don't have to sign it. You don't have to sign it at all. You can back out of your deal. It's all it's a private thing for you. You don't have to do it just because you signed
Okay.
something with us.
I
If
see.
you decide not to buy it from the real estate agent, then you don't buy
Okay.
it. So, but if you expect an abatement from us, then you'd have to sign it.
Okay.
So he's made it pretty simple. The controlling organization shall be, is it controlling organization or individual?
It's an organization. You're creating an LLC,
It's an
correct?
LLC.
We
It's
are.
not a,
The
it's not a cash
controlling
person.
organization shall be required to pay back any abated taxes if 630 Main Street is sold or otherwise transferred to an outside agency between the dates of July 1st, 2024 and June 30th of 2028.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Steve, discussion? Okay, all in favor of altering item E to Candy's motion?
What was it called?
6. Opposed? Abstaining? 601? Okay, so that's that. And now we need a motion on the whole draft, correct?
Yep.
Can I have a motion to accept and approve the resolution for tax abatement for 630 Main Street?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jack. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? 601?
Okay, yeah, a lot of work
Ready
to
for
do,
your
we're
sign,
thinking
sir.
ahead.
Thank you.
And for the record, the BAA has been more than fair with documentation. So bring your documentation next year and you'll be fine.
Thank you.
That will include appraisal. If you
Okay.
don't have an appraisal, don't go there.
Got it. Thank you.
Moving on to item B, discussion on 840 East Wakefield Boulevard for a permanent easement and possible referral to, to special town meeting.
So there was a second handout that the board received at the very beginning of our evening that indicates there are two colored parcels. This is all around 840 East Wakefield Boulevard. Parcel 1 shown in yellow, parcel 2 shown in pink. Parcel 1 is a parcel that immediately abuts Highland Lake that is owned by the town of Winchester. Parcel 2 is a parcel that includes East Wakefield Boulevard itself. As we have gone through this process, there's been more review by the Director of Public Works, by the town attorney. We've had more conversations with Paganos. And a question was brought, and it was asked of me to bring it to you as to whether parcel 1, as it's been depicted for you on this map, should either be sold or have a permanent easement granted on it as it relates to the improvements that the Paganos have across the property and maintaining those. Based on conversations that I've had with board members, it appears that the answer is to move forward with permanent easements. If that is the case, then this has successfully gone through an 824 referral with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I would recommend that the Board of Selectmen set a special town meeting date for the first Monday. It needs to be between 30 and 45 days out, so it would be Monday, June 5th, 2023, at, say, 6 o'clock p.m. I think we have a few items that are going to end up landing on that day, so you might want an hour instead of a half hour for that special town meeting. I would recommend 6 o'clock p.m. on that Monday, June 5th.
Before we go there, we are granting a permanent easement to them on town-owned land, on
Correct.
the yellow part. I didn't know this the last time. I didn't know that this was a town-owned parcel, which brings up other issues with it as we move forward. So how can we grant this permanent easement on town-owned land for them to do work over on the yellow part when there's a good possibility that it may, we don't know where this park is gonna go?
Sorry, we don't know where which part's
The
going to go.
yellow part, the town-owned part.
You mean in terms of, are we going to sell it? Are we going to do something else with it? That's a great question. I think that's a decision for the Board of Selectmen. It's a policy decision as to, do you want to allow this or not? Obviously, at some point in time, development components were made on this piece of property. And the question is, do we want to allow them to be maintained, or is the town not going to permit that?
Well, I think the part that's on their house and the piece of land that they own, that they themselves own, but it goes over to the yellow part that we own. And Jim is here, and I believe that we are also, as a town, paying for some drainage and repairs to other land that the town has to fix because it's part in the town-owned right-of-way so the road doesn't collapse. So the question, that's my question on this is, like, if we took the town-owned land and took that out of the equation, because if I believe over to the right is just a shed and beach.
It's a shed. You want me to come up to the mic, or?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, on the drawing, there shows a shed and a beach, but that's on town-owned land.
It's not a beach, it's part
Or
of a dock.
Yeah.
Half of the dock.
Right, but it's on town-owned land.
Half of the dock is built on town-owned land. All right, now, again, on prior presentation, I showed you aerial photography from the state of Connecticut that was there as of 1980. So this is not something that was there, it was way before I purchased it, way before 2 or 3 other individuals purchased it. What I've got here is just the same thing. All they've done is marked out parcel 1 and parcel 2, just like this is. And the bigger picture, though, is not so much of what's on it, or if you recall the document itself, the easement calls for that I'm only to maintain what's existing there. I'm not to expand, and anything that I do is on my dollar. All right, the second thing is this. The reason why we're initially coming here is there is a retaining wall that is on my property, except a small portion is on the town's property. That retaining wall is in a state of disrepair. If it falls down, East Wakefield's right behind it, coming into the lake. So I'm interested in getting the wall repaired. I have a document that has been signed by a professional engineer from Goshen. I'm ready to go out to a contractor, but I can't do that because part of it is on the town's land. I want to get this wall fixed because if there is a serious void behind it where there is the potential that the whole street, because we're only like 10 feet from the roadway here, could potentially fall right into the lake. So, you wanna take everything else away, I don't care, I gotta get the wall fixed.
So on
And that's what I'm asking to. If you wanna only grant me permission now to get the wall fixed, or an easement to that effect, that's fine. And then we can talk about the rest later,
yes.
not a problem.
So should we put, for this section here on town-owned land, the temporary easement for repair and a permanent easement on the partial he does own?
That would be fine. We
That's
can
what I
have the
thought
town
I
attorney.
thought we were doing it on parcel 2 was a permanent one.
Well, they weren't-
Parcel 2 was gonna, well, it was, truthfully, parcel 1 and parcel 2 was gonna be a permanent easement, all right? Because I have to maintain that dock area. Half of it is on my property, half of it is not. The only access to that dock is down a staircase that happens to be town's property. So it's my responsibility to maintain it.
So we did approve that the last time, but then it's come back to us in a new light right now,
Okay,
at least for me.
okay.
It comes back in, there's yours that you own, and then there's town-owned land. And,
Well, I thought that we talked about it that way, but maybe I didn't. And
I don't, I would've, because of my experience here with other pieces of town-owned land that, in the way back. So, so I would say the permanent easement on the part that they do own, and then a temporary easement for repairs on the town-owned, just like we did with the other gentleman that was here when you were here. Give him a temporary easement to do his
for his garden area.
garden area that was in town, on town property, and it all went forward. I mean, I'd be willing to do that.
Well, okay,
I'm the only one that,
then would I have to come back for the rest? Or we're gonna just totally deny the rest?
no,
I think-
I would do a permanent, if it was my motion, I make a motion to, do a permanent easement on parcel 2 and a temporary easement for the repair on parcel 1.
Okay.
And then, once it's done, you don't have the easement on parcel 1 anymore.
Okay.
You come back and discuss it.
I'd have, any other further repairs, I would have to come back and discuss it with you again. Because again, the staircase that goes down to that dock area that's on the easterly half, I will have to maintain that someday.
Well, I think because of what we know, I think that becomes another issue.
I understand.
You know, because, having private people on town-owned land sometimes presents issues if we know about them, but, not like anybody went out looking for it, it just happens to be there. And because we know about it, right?
That's why I kind of put it in the fashion that it would be my responsibility to maintain it, and I would have $2 million worth of insurance that what the town was gonna be requiring for that reason. If there are any trees or any damages that would have to be done, I would take care of it on my costs. So I thought everything was there that you were interested in, but again, I'm interested in getting the wall done.
Right.
We can come back later on if we have to.
What does everybody else think?
Sounds fine with me.
Temporary easement and permanent easement?
Permanent on the parcel 2 and temporary easement on parcel 1.
Any other discussion?
Because we could always come back and, if you need a permanent easement on parcel 2, when it all gets straightened out, then, we can
I
do that.
totally agree. Who's second? It's not a problem.
We didn't second it. So Candy has the motion.
Okay, so I'll make the motion official, unless you guys over there have anything. Okay, I make a let me put my glasses on. So what number, 840? I make a motion that we grant a permanent easement on property at 840 East Wakefield Boulevard and a temporary easement on the adjacent town property. Is there a block number on that?
Yep.
On a temporary easement on town property, property ID 044108030-31.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Candace. Discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Unanimous? Item C,
This is from the last meeting.
23-18.
Yep.
Driveway ordinance variance request for 543 East Wakefield Boulevard.
I just want to let you know for personal reasons, I'll be abstaining and not discussing this.
You're recusing yourself from
These
discussing.
are the same materials as you saw at the last meeting.
You get that?
For this item.
I have a new pack
If I-
of materials for everybody, and they're primarily pictures, so it's not going to be fun reading.
Would you like to distribute them? Would you like me to distribute them?
Okay, be happy to. I had 7. Did I miss one?
Jack,
Oh, sorry.
oh, that's okay.
I'll share with you. While the applicant is setting up, if I may, Mr. Mayor. Just to make sure that the board is aware, there were some questions that were presented at the last meeting. I think it was a pretty clear indication we needed to have further consultation with our town attorney. Questions are out to our town attorney. I do not have any written responses back from him at this point. But we do have our Director of Public Works here who may wish to say a few words on the matter.
Okay. We're here tonight because Mr. Cirque has requested that the Board of Selectmen make a determination that the driveway ordinance does not apply to their property, the driveway on their property, because they resurfaced the existing driveway rather than reconstructed it. And in addition, if the determination of the board is that the ordinance does apply, then the Cirques are requesting that the board consider a variance. So let's start with board number 1, which is a survey of the Cirque property. This is on East Wakefield Boulevard. The lake is obviously over here, and this is a very steeply sloped, very narrow lot going down to East Wakefield Boulevard. When they purchased the property, all of the green and yellow was essentially gravel. It was gravel from property line to property line, from the road to the building. And its dimensions was 50 feet by 47 feet. When they resurfaced their driveway, what they did was they resurfaced only a portion of what was previously the existing driveway, and they grassed over the green areas there, changing them from impervious to pervious coverage. In addition, in the back, they put in pervious pavers here, and they rebuilt the retaining wall with trap rock to further slow the flow of water down the hill to the street. As you can see down here, they've reduced the impervious coverage from 34% before they purchased the property to 22% after they completed all of their renovations, which is a 35% reduction in the impervious surfaces on the property. Now, the driveway ordinance states that it applies only to new driveways and driveways that have been, existing driveways that have been substantially reconstructed. And their definition of substantially reconstructed is constructed by more than 50% of its entire length. But unfortunately, they do not define what reconstruction means. if you look at the standard definition of, you know, in a dictionary, in like the Webster's Dictionary, reconstruction is rebuilding, repairing, or, read that, hold on, restoring something, as opposed to resurfacing, which is just simply applying a new surface. And I would put to you, for example, if you were to apply a vinyl siding to the side of your house, you have not reconstructed your house, and therefore have to comply with all of the new code regulations just because you put vinyl siding on your house. And this is the same thing. They just put a new surface on top of their existing driveway. Now, if you look at the Connecticut DOT, well, the Connecticut statutes for the Connecticut Highway Department, they also say that a permit is only required if you're building a new driveway or you're relocating an existing driveway. If you're resurfacing your driveway, you do not need a permit from the state of Connecticut if the driveway borders on a state highway. And then lastly, today I went through a Westlaw legal research of a book called Words and Phrases, which basically gives you all of the case law throughout the United States where courts have decided what certain words and phrases mean. And I looked up the word reconstruct, but with all different endings to it. And I only came up with one case that was actually relevant. And that was a case in New York where they found that when a city resurfaced, just repaved a street, it was not a reconstruction, right? That required them to do other things. So the only case law I have found on the issue of what is reconstruction versus what is resurfacing says that resurfacing is not reconstruction. Now, here is what the property looked like before the Cirques purchased it. You can see the driveway with the gravel all the way up to the garage. And this is what they have now, which is a substantially narrower driveway and grass on both sides. Now, there are three portions of the driveway ordinance that are at issue in this case. Paragraph 3 and paragraph 4 have to do with the pitch or the grade of the driveway. And we acknowledge that the Cirques driveway does not comply with these paragraphs. And so therefore, for that, we would request a variance if the board decides that the driveway ordinance applies in this circumstance. All right? But the other is whether or not, the issue of whether or not the driveway discharges water onto the roadway. But before I get into those issues of this, I ask that the board make a determination whether the driveway ordinance applies to this circumstance where all they've done is resurfaced an existing driveway.
Can I ask you what 7 is? It's an inside of the building in a garage?
I'm gonna get to that if we get past this issue. I need a vote on whether or not, I need the board to make a determination that the ordinance applies when all you do is resurface. I mean, I can tell you that, as you'll see later on if we get into this, this ordinance has been in existence since 1987, or I'm sorry, 86. And I have found scant documentation in the records of people applying for permits when they're just putting a new surface on top of an existing driveway. And as a matter of fact, it's still going on today. The ordinance is not being applied even-handedly and regularly to everyone. And if you're going to go back and come after the Cirques and say, well, you have to comply and you have to do this, well, what about all the other people who since 1986 have resurfaced the driveway? And there are probably hundreds of them. So if you decide that it applies, you better be prepared to go after them as well. So again, I'm asking the board to make a determination whether this ordinance applies to this circumstance or not.
I will share, Mr. Mayor, that As I said before, our town attorney has not had the ample time to review this matter since we last met, specifically with this particular question. I can't in good conscience recommend that you make a determination on this. I don't know if anybody has more specific questions, or if there's anything that our Director of Public Works would like to
If
share.
you can't make a determination, then we can't discuss variance. You have to decide that it applies before we even can discuss variance.
I'd like to table this to our next meeting.
Do you have any other questions on the board?
I mean, the statute itself says in paragraph 17A, the Board of Selection shall serve as the board which may grant variances or determine the effect of this ordinance. I don't know what determining the effect of this ordinance is, other than deciding what it means.
So you are stating that they just applied material on top of the old driveway?
Yes,
On top of gravel.
yes. That's all
They
I
didn't
did.
remove any of the gravel prior?
They, they
That's
tell me
correct.
no,
Down.
excuse me, just a moment, we'll get to you, but they tell me no. Mr. Rawlings says that the last 10 feet are slightly higher than what they were. We don't agree with that, but even if you accept what he says is true, that's not more than half the length of the driveway.
Okay, but you haven't resurfaced the driveway in the event that the pitch of the driveway has changed, correct?
We don't have to if the ordinance doesn't apply.
Okay. But the ordinance applies if you've reconstructed the driveway. So that's the
If we-
definition that
yes,
I'm trying
that's
to
the-
get at.
That's the whole crux here, is
Right.
does resurfacing an existing driveway constitute reconstruction of that driveway? And if it does, we have a real problem with how this town has been enforcing this statute or this ordinance.
Okay. Who was the individual, the firm that conducted the work?
That would be for Gale.
Okay. Could they, for Gale's a company that's known very well to us, could they furnish a letter stating that it was a simple resurfacing?
We've asked for Gale, and they said that they don't want to have anything to do with this process.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but that's what they said.
Do you have any qualms if we were to reach out to Gale and ask for the same?
I have absolutely no qualms, but again, I mean, you know, we're not here to try to point fingers at private contractors.
No, but we are here to determine the
Okay.
truth, correct?
If you'd like to call, you know, for Gale and ask them what they did on the driveway, you know, I have no problem with that. They'll tell you that they put a new surface down.
Okay.
Jim, do you have any comments?
For the record, Jim Rollins, Director of Public Works. Couple of curveballs were thrown that I think we're out of the strike zone here. The driveway was not just paved over what was there. 100% of the length from the road to the house was reconstructed. If they come out of the house at a much more level grade than they had, which is, you know, I don't know which pictures he's got shown up there, but the pictures that I had included with my packet show, you know, some side angles, which makes it a little easier to see. But if you come out of the garage doors more flat, and you still have to get down to the same point at the road, yes, the first 10 feet maybe, 12 feet, 8 feet, whatever it is flatter. From there, it doesn't just stop. grades have to transition and join. You don't do that just with asphalt. You can look at the quality of the driveway now. It's really well done. A driveway pavement would not hold up like that if it was just put over crappy old gravel. There was new base put in. The contractors that did that driveway were J&J Excavating and Frigale Paving. I don't know which one did the base, the subgrade, obviously the paving was done by Frigale. But a new base was put in, it was regraded, it was reshaped, it was recontoured, it was repaved. It is substantial reconstruction, it does require a permit. I can just stop with that, it should be enough.
Could I ask Mr. Rollins a question? Were you there during the construction?
I was not.
Okay, thanks. If you'd like to call any of the contractors, I have no objection. How they respond to you is up to them. We're not directing them not to talk to you, obviously. We have a motion to table from Candace. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? So reach out to,
J&J and Frigale were the two.
And to get a response from Kevin.
Yeah.
can you tell me when the next meeting is? Because I do have some scheduling conflicts.
Monday, May 15th, 2 weeks from today.
Unless you want to adjourn to South Africa, is that going to work? How about the first meeting in June, which would be?
June 5th.
Yeah, June 5th. Here's my problem. I'm coming back, and then I'm spending about a week and a half here, and then in June, I have to go down with my wife to help with her 90-year-old mother, because her brother, who is normally the helper down there, is in Norway playing with whales. So we won't be back until from June 3rd until June 17th. And so what's the next meeting after that?
Tuesday, June 20th.
Tuesday, June 20th would be, let me just check my calendar. All right, that's a Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay. We're good.
Holiday before that. Juneteenth.
Juneteenth.
Oh, Juneteenth, yeah.
Juneteenth, aren't you
Yeah,
doing
yeah, yeah,
something?
Yeah,
Soldiers
forgot.
Monument?
I forgot.
Table till Tuesday, June 20th, pending further information. All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Moving on to new business, item 23-21. Refunds as recommended by the Collector of Revenues.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have $13,551.37 proposed in refunds today. The vast majority of these and the vast majority of the money related to these refunds is due to overpayment, particularly in the areas of real estate property taxes. And it's recommended that the full amount of that $13,896.58 be issued as a refund. My apologies. The first time I read that number, it was for the real estate refunds. The second number that I read is correct. The total refunds when you add motor vehicle and real estate is $13,896.58.
Do we have a motion?
I move that the Board of Selectmen authorize the refunds recommended by the Collector of Revenue in the amount of $13,896.58.
Is there a second? Jonathan? Discussion?
I'm just wondering, is there any, they're all overpayments. We've got, how many, 12 overpayments? Is there any way that that can be alleviated? It seems like every meeting we have overpayments. Why does that happen so frequently? And it's the same, this is all to the same company.
Right, and I'm not sure what
What-
happened in
what-
this particular case. I know there are some different reasons why overpayments can occur. If you have some kind of mortgage withholding company, they may have incorrect data and be sending incorrect amounts of money to the town. If you, certainly if you're somebody who has a mortgage and you have direct payments coming from your bank, but you either issue your own check personally, or there are a lot of different ways that wires can get crossed. I will check in with Ashley to find out if there's something, especially with this centralized refunds.
Right.
It does appear that it's all related to a singular entity to some extent, and if we can alleviate that in the future, I would appreciate it too.
Thank you.
All in favor? Unanimous? 23-22, proposed line item transfers.
So here we have a proposed intra-departmental transfer, so it's only within the police department, which is Department 210 in our budget. It's in the amount of $10,000, which would come from line 210, 192-0014, training activities, to 210-821-0000 for maintenance of vehicles. And as Chief Susi has written down on the second page of the fund transfers document, the maintenance of vehicles, there have been multiple unanticipated mechanical failures on the main line of fleet vehicles. Transferring out of the training activities line item, which is currently designated for salaries for recruits in the academy. We don't anticipate any recruits to be coming into the academy before the end of the fiscal year, as much as we would like to be proactive in the area of recruiting. We simply can't make it happen, and we have excess funds there. So using that to cover the costs of the maintenance of vehicles, the surprise maintenance of vehicles costs, is a fiscally sound decision to make, and I would recommend that a motion be made to that effect.
We have a motion?
I'll take it. To move that the Board of Selectmen approve line item transfer $10,000 from training activities to maintenance of vehicles in the amount of $10,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jonathan. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? That's the only one.
Yep.
23-23, consider and possibly act on the allocation of American Rescue Plan money to fund the position of Director of Economic Development in fiscal year '24.
As has been discussed at prior meetings related to the budget, the proposed position of Director of Economic Development was taken out of the fiscal year 2024 budget on the premise that we still have money in our American Rescue Plan Act fund that could go to support such a position. Our current Director of Economic Development has been with us for just a little bit over a year. I think this has been a good time for him to understand the challenges we're up against, assist us with specific grant applications, many of which have been successful, and continue to move the ball, so to speak, when it comes to attracting and retaining new businesses to come to town. I think we've had a lot of discussion, and the focus for fiscal year 2024 needs to be the growth of the grant list. He's of an understanding, I'm of an understanding, and I believe that the investment of this proposed $51,672 out of the American Rescue Plan Act to cover salary and FICA-related costs, payroll taxes, is a sound investment in moving forward with the development of the town's grand list over the course of the next fiscal year. And I would recommend that this allocation be authorized.
Do we have a motion?
I have a discussion.
Go ahead.
As we allocate this money, I would ask that over the course of the next year, on a quarterly basis, that we've been given not just what has happened, but the actual impact on economic dollars. So equate, I guess the word would be metrics. So what were the metrics of investing, because we've invested 50,000, and then what were the metrics of another investment in 50,000 in this position in terms of economic growth on a quarterly basis? Not, I went to this meeting, or not that I met with this person, but the actual impact.
Josh, can you identify, if this 51,672 is applied, when does it start?
It would be July 1st through
July
June
1st.
30th. Right now, we have money through June 30th, 2023, this coming June.
It's for the next budget.
So this will authorize the next fiscal year.
So why are we acting right now? We could wait till after the budget has been passed, or?
No, we moved it out of the budget.
Well, you moved it out of the budget. The reason I propose it now is mostly because I didn't want to forget. If I'm being honest, it was on our minds. It was part of discussion at the last meeting, which related to the passage of the budget. I think it was pretty clearly noted, even in our minutes, that the intention of moving it out of the budget was
Yeah, I was
to
just
still
wondering why it
authorize
was coming
it.
up now and as opposed to.
I just figured, while it's fresh on our minds, let's move it along.
That's fair enough.
Well, if we have to cut the budget, it could be rescinded, I guess. You know.
You can always reallocate it later, because the money's just going to be earmarked until such a
Right.
time as we start spending it in July 1.
Well, Candace is right, because if this budget doesn't pass, there's a lot of things we're gonna have to do.
But he's saying we could reallocate it,
Yep.
because we're not spending it.
Yeah.
It's just earmarking it, as he said.
Well, we've earmarked it already before, but now.
No, the first half. We earmarked 24,000 to get to June 30th. This is from July 1 to June 30th, 2024.
Right.
We have a motion?
So moved.
Dennis, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jonathan. Further discussion?
Yeah, once, on July 1st, can we also be given a copy of the contract?
Of course. You can have that now.
Well, we might rescind it if the budget issues.
Well, but the contract, just so everybody's aware, it's the same ongoing contract that we've had, and there is a clause in it that says that in the event it becomes defunded, the
Yeah,
contract ceases to
The
apply.
reason I'm asking for the contract is so it becomes practice, because we ran into a few problems during the last time we did this and did not see the contract ahead of time, so I just want to make sure that everything, we're aware of ahead of time, and you want us to know that too, because you don't want us coming back and saying, well, we didn't know that was there, so.
All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Item 23-24, consider and possibly act on the appointment of a moderator for the annual town meeting to be held Monday, May 8th.
The language that I've presented to you tonight, I've outlined a little bit of a background related to the charter and what it says about the appointment of a moderator. In the event that you don't appoint a moderator tonight, please note that the charter reverts the task back to the mayor, but it is up to a majority vote of the Board of Selectmen to designate a moderator if it shall not be the mayor. There have been a lot of names that have been presented to me. I have been working with Terry, with Debbie Jones, and others. Glenn had some input in this as well as members of the Board of Selectmen, to try and find a moderator that is mutually acceptable and available to take on the role. And after much discussion, deliberation, the name that I present to you for consideration tonight is that of Dennis Dressel. Dennis is a longstanding member of our community. He worked in the insurance business, and he's the former chair of our Economic Development Commission. He is no longer the chair, but still serves in the capacity of a commissioner within our Economic Development Commission. He is somebody who has had the opportunity to stand up and speak in front of hundreds of people at various events that he's helped to run just through the Economic Development Commission, never mind in his outside life. And I think he's proven that he can handle the different quirks of meeting as complicated as the annual town budget meeting, and I recommend that the Board of Selectmen consider him for appointment.
Of course, he's accepted.
He has been notified that he is being under consideration. He has said that he is interested and willing.
Whoa.
I don't think he knew what he was saying when he
Yeah.
made that commitment.
Quick, let's
I know
approve.
Dennis, he doesn't usually quickly volunteer.
And some members of the Board of Selectmen have said that they would make themselves available to speak to Dennis and make sure he knows the ins and outs of running the meeting, and I really appreciate that. I'm sure Dennis will too.
I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Dennis Dressel to serve as moderator at the annual town budget meeting to be held at 7 PM on Monday, May 8th at the Gilbert School Auditorium.
I'll second it.
Do we have discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous? 23-25, consider and possibly act on a positive 824 referral from Planning and Zoning and establishing a special town meeting to approve the sale of the bachelor school property.
So as, you know, you just summarized, Mr. Mayor, the sale of the bachelor school property has been discussed by this board, has been discussed at various informational meetings, has gone through the planning and zoning review process and 824 referral. That referral came back positively, and it's the next step in this process, should the board wish to proceed, is to refer the matter to a special town meeting, a date and time where the approval of a lease and option to purchase on the bachelor school property may be considered and voted on. So per the town's ordinances, as I mentioned in a prior item, this is to be set for a date 30 to 45 days out from the present date. So I recommend, I'm actually going to deviate a little bit because we have multiple items that may be going to special town meeting that night. I recommend that the special town meeting be set for 6:00 PM on Monday, June 5th, immediately prior to the regular Board of Selectmen meeting to be held that night.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Linda. Discussion?
The only discussion is just to make sure certain, that you talk to Kevin again about certain items for the contract before we get to that meeting.
All in favor? Unanimous? 23-26, consider and possibly act on the approval of the town manager's contract.
I have presented a proposed contract for fiscal year 2024, effective July 1, 2023. That reflects from my perspective, a number of small changes, but one larger change being my salary, which has been no stranger to conversations in this room. And I'm happy to speak to the economics of where my salary was when I first started, and the fact that the salary that I'm requesting going into fiscal year 2024 as of March 2023, when you adjust for inflation, is actually only 1.67% over what I was receiving at the time that I accepted my position. I believe it's a reasonable request. It would put me in line with other town managers in small municipalities. I appreciate that the Board of Selectmen has been willing to consider and possibly act on this item, but I would ask that the Board of Selectmen consider adopting the proposed contracts tonight.
I'll take a motion to move that the Board of Selectmen approve the town manager's proposed contract as presented and authorize the mayor to sign the contract on behalf of the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Thank you, thank you. And this discussion? Josh, how much have you brought in grants?
In fiscal year 2022, in calendar year 2022, it was just over $5.5 million.
Thank you. Other discussion?
There have been some people causing a political debate on the town manager's salary. I've had it last year at an RTC meeting, and not just the RTC people have made arguments of the contrary, but they don't see the Josh Kelly that I see, and that's why I'll be voting for it.
Thanks, Jonathan. Any other discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Unanimous? Twenty-three 27, consider and possibly act on making an 824 referral of the sale of 17 Front Street to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
So the town has received a number of different offers on the parcel at 17 Front Street. There were 4 that were initially sent to us that were over our asking price of $80,000. The 4 that were over that asking price we reached back out to each of them. We told them that they're among the 4 highest submissions, and we asked them to submit final best offers. Those final best offers were made Wednesday morning this past week, and the final best offer that is of the highest value is one totaling $93,000. And that total includes, the offer that's being made. It's somebody who has previously lived in Winstead, is trying to stay in Winstead. It's going to be a cash transaction. There would be no inspections required. This is going to be a very smooth process from my perspective. So I would not only ask that the Board of Selectmen consider making an 824 referral on the sale of 17 Front Street to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd ask that the board consider, you don't have to, but I'd ask that you consider setting the sale of the property up at a special town meeting date June 5, 2023 at 6:00 p.m.
Do we have a motion?
Perhaps contingent on
No.
the positive 824
You're gonna make it
referral.
6:15 because you made the other one 6 o'clock.
Well, I figure you just have them all on the agenda for 6:00.
Right, to town meeting. I move the Board of Selectmen send the sale of 17 Front Street to the Planning and Zoning Commission for an 824 referral and direct the town manager to engage a private citizen with a high offer of $93,000 to proceed with the sale of the process and set a public,
Special town meeting.
public special town meeting on 6/5/2023.
I'll second. Discussion? This is another property that the town owns. It'll be being added back to the tax rolls, hopefully. And hopefully it's the first of many. All in favor? Unanimous? 23-28, consider and possibly act on directing additional town-owned parcels to be put on the market to be sold.
At this time, I have no recommendations for the board to act on. Some items have been discussed with members of the Board of Selectmen, and from my perspective, I don't believe we're ready to move forward with further items for the market.
No, that's what I was gonna basically say, we need some more time to consider some things, so I would ask that we move it to another meeting.
What, you want to give it a date? How soon do we want to look at some of these?
After 6:30, after,
Well, I think we need to, look at what we have there and try to figure out, which ones are, ones that we can move and which ones will require a little bit more research and whatnot. So I can't say a date. I gotta work with him on stuff, so. I'm sure it's not gonna be long.
we can move it to 6:20 and then decide on 6:20 if, we have enough information. On some of them, anyway.
Some of them you might have enough information at the next meeting, some of them may take even longer than
Right,
6:20.
right.
So I would be happy to simply leave it on the agenda if it's the board's pleasure to, anytime we have an item, it can simply be discussed and referred to sale.
I wouldn't leave it there. I would put it there if there's a specific one we're going to bring.
Item 11, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers be limited to 3 minutes and may speak once. Come on up.
Captain Stephen Kosinski, 105A Standing Avenue. Completely different subject. We have a situation here where we've got a lot of supposed outlying tourist items. We've got Infinity Hall, we've got Jacob's Ladder up Route 8, we've got the Warner Theater down and the dance down in Torrington. The one component that we do not have in this town is lodging. We don't have it. And if we had lodging, as a center point where all these people could go to all these other different sites to enjoy, we got the restaurants, we've got a theater, a dinner theater, we don't have any lodging. And that is, would, raise the tax base, the grand list for us. But I've mentioned this years ago, about getting someone to involve themselves with finding a Days Inn or a Courtesy, whatever, to see you could get say a 50 or 60 or 70 unit lodging in the area here, and which would add to the attraction. That is a serious problem. We've got a lot of things going all around us, but you don't have anywhere for the people to stay. They have to come here, and boom, they're gone. They leave. If you had them, they could stay for 24, 48 hours. They could take in all of the amenities that the town offers. Have we done anything in the last 8 to 10 years to try to get some lodging into this town? I haven't seen it. No, I've heard a few things mentioned and everything else, but no real serious entertainment of getting lodging into this town. It really is critical, and it would help our grand list. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Jerry.
Jerry Martinez, 117 Preston Road. For this comment, I'm speaking as the chairman of the Republican Town Committee here in Winchester. I take offense to what Selectman Moorhart had just said. The RTC does not take any position on the town manager or any member of the board or any other commission or what have you in the town. I'm not sure where that came from. I was not aware of it. And I will ask that Selectman Moorhart have that comment stricken from the record.
My apologies for talking about the RTC specifically. I meant some in the RTC.
Regardless, I take offense to that, and it shows poorly on the Republican Town Committee. The Town Committee has been more than open with various members of this board, the town manager, the Board of Ed, and other people within this town. So I ask that you have that comment stricken from the record and apologize.
I apologize. People know that I would never hurt the RTC. I was talking about certain people with people that happen to have political leanings, and it has nothing to do with the RTC itself. That clarification was needed, and it wasn't just the RTC. There were some people on other boards that were talking about it on various cuts and various other things. And
I don't care. But the problem is that the RTC does not take an official position of any member who's on a board or commission.
I hope it be strict from the record, and I do apologize about that.
All right, thank you.
Will, anything?
I'm good, thank you.
Selectmen's comments and reports.
Juneteenth?
Yeah, we'll have a meeting before then. Right. Yeah, but just to clarify, we are planning I'm not privy to the exact date. I think Juneteenth is Monday.
Right.
And we're gonna have a celebration on Sunday instead, at the Soldiers Monument. We've got a speaker coming, some events. And of course, Memorial Day is coming. We'll be doing the Memorial Day exercises, ceremony at East End Park. And of course, you're all invited to be with us on the grandstand on that day. We're still working on a few program issues, but we'll get them all done.
Linda?
Pet Parade's coming up May 20th, and I believe we have 11 Laurel candidates.
Too late for more entries, or are they still open?
The closing date was Friday the 28th, but we'll take any juniors or Winsted resident juniors or seniors for scholarship.
Anyone else? Candy?
Yeah, I was wondering if we could have a small group to talk about the website, to have a meeting about what is and what isn't on the website, how the underlying functions are going on, and then trying to wait patiently. But I'm looking at the website right now, there is nothing about and I don't see anything on the main page for the May 8th meeting. Under news, I see water mains, I see adult co-ed kickball, I see pickleball. Under the calendar date, there is a May 8th meeting, but up top, the news is just water mains to be flushed. And on my mobile phone, there's some things that don't interact with things, so I thought that it might be a good idea to have a small group of people meet and talk about various specifics in the website, because it was implemented back last October, and we still have things that are missing. So I'd like to know a little bit more about what's happening on the backside, when's it all gonna be more complete than it is, and so I'm hoping we could do that.
Anyone else? Next meeting next Monday at the Gilbert School at 7 PM. Steve?
Move we adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Unanimous.